Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video tutorial, we're going to experiment with a little bit of color mixing, but create a fun project using DecoArt Value Craft stencils. So I've got the stencil here, the Believe in Magic, and I thought what I would do is I'm looking to create stuff for the walls in my living room. We bought some new furniture, which is very much a charcoal, distressed wood, barn doors, like really rustic, modern rustic. I thought it would be neat if I could somehow create a mixture as a backdrop and create a lot of these quote art, is what I like to call it. But my accent colors for my home is teal. Well, so how do I create something that could kind of tie everything together and not be completely, off the wall? That would be like all your furniture is orange and then your paintings on the wall would be purple. It's such a contrast. So I want to try to create something to tie it in. So what I thought I would do is I would try to create a diffused background using various shades of greens that are leaning more towards the blue side. But then I'm not sure about the actual stencil part. I wanted to do it in rose gold, but I don't know if that's going to be strong enough. So I'm going to try with charcoal. So what I'm going to be experimenting with this one is the DecoArt Traditions. I got Phthalo Blue, Permanentalism Crimson, Handsy Yellow Medium, which I laid out here. I got some opaque titanium white, and then I've got the DecoArt matte metallics in charcoal and in rose gold. My go-to would definitely be the charcoal, but I really like rose gold. So these stencils, this one I've never used before, as you can see why it's so clean. They are paper-based stencils, hence why they're called kraft stencils, and you get two. Value stencils, I should say. You get these two. Alright, so let me put this aside. And I'm going to be using my Strathmore Vision watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds. And when I'm creating stuff like this, I always do a study first. Like we could go even as far as doing a study first on grid charts for color mixing. Then you create your study on paper, and then you actually create the artwork on canvas. Because canvas isn't cheap, I like to do studies first on paper because I have no place to put this. Because with the paper, you can always cover it over with gesso and use it for something else. Speaking of gesso, I'm going to use some DecoArt Media Gesso. I've got, oh no. No. I want to use the chalky gesso. Hopefully the camera shake wasn't too bad. Oh. I don't know if I have enough in the cap there. Oh god, that's too big. I'm going to have to see if I can get something smaller. That's way too big. Get my trusty number 8 Bristle Bright. And what I'm doing now is I'm just creating some tooth. So if you don't have a gesso is a great way to prime your paper. If you go to paint, depending on how much moisture you use, if you go to paint directly on watercolor paper, first of all, the paint is going to sink into the paper. The gesso creates a barrier, so you can wipe off before it gets absorbed, before it dries. And if you use just plain watercolor paper and you use too much water, your paper is going to curl, which is why watercolorists, sometimes they tape their papers down or use very thick paper. But I like using gesso because it creates that barrier. The paint sits on top of the paper and doesn't sink in because the gesso is thicker. Now this one here is thinner than the DecoArt Media Gesso. I was having to thin down the DecoArt Media Gesso to create a thinner version of what I want. Now I don't have to because I've got this one. And I want some of that texture because when the paint goes on, I want the texture to show through. That's why I'm using all these rough brush strokes. Let's pick up one more. You don't want the ridges to be too strong because when you go to stencil, it's going to affect that. I was tempted to use the texture metallics through that. I've never done that with these stencils. which probably is the reason why I should have tried it so you could see. There we go. Okay, that brush in water. Alrighty, my friends, so I'm going to let this dry. Oh my God. My strength is not as what it used to be. So I'm going to lay that about there, and then I can always just put this into a book with notes for the study. Or if it turns out like super good, I could actually just cut the paper and put it into a frame. But that's what I'm looking at. What I may do, depending, you know what? I think what I'm going to do instead, because I'm looking at the stencil, letting some inspiration kick in. I'm going to do the wording in the charcoal and then do the stars in rose gold, because I can already tell just looking at this, and I'm kind of visualizing the green. The rose gold isn't going to show up with these ones here, so I'm going to do that instead. Alrighty, going to let this dry, and we'll come back in a few minutes. Alright, I'm back. Now, I ended up going down to make a cup of tea, and then I forgot that I had a virtual conference I had to attend. An hour and a half I was gone. Came back. All I had to do with the paint was just mix it with my palette knife. It was still usable. I was so happy. Because it's freezing cold in here. It's so cold. Okie dokie. What I want to do, I'm looking for my brush. What I want to do is get a big brush. Big, huge brush. I want to do this really washy. And I need something bigger than what I have. And I don't feel like going in the other room to get it. So, okay. I'll use a mop brush. This is just what I use to pull up edges, ridges of paint. So, bear with me while I try to think this through. I'm going to mix the paint on the palette. I don't want to do mixing with this thing. We're going to need water for sure. I'm going to start off with the lightest green first. So I'm going to take some yellow, hence yellow medium, a speck of blue. Whoa. Okay, that's still really bright. Let me just get a bit more yellow. Okay. And now I'm going to just take my brush. I dipped it in water. I'm just going to load it. And I'm just going to apply. And I'm really just going all over till I run out of paint. Then I'll load the brush again. Dip a bit more water. Now, we don't have to worry with this about the paint being weak, because we're going to be putting layers and layers and layers on top. The problem with using brushes like this, look at the bubbles. But when they dry, it's a really cool effect. I'm going to pull in just a little bit more blue. See what happens when you mix it on your brush? Oh! Just want to get a base. I was getting impatient. Using different diagonals and all that stuff. I'm going to take that. I'm going to rinse my brush, make sure, because that's an important brush. Now I'm going to get my heat gun, which is where. Now my heat gun doesn't reach properly. Ah, just dropped my paint. Oh, just dropped another bottle of paint. And I'm just going to put the heat gun on, and I'm going to blow it in a direction going towards the center. It's already drying, so I could just leave it like this. You know what, I may leave it like that. Let's try this corner here to see what happens with the bubbles. Always putting my hand here. If my hand can't take the heat, I gotta back off the heat gun. So what it does, I don't know if you can tell, where they dried, you got little splotches of modeling. Where I use the heat gun, it's a completely different effect. They've kind of bloomed out, which I like. So you can also, I'm going to do that with darker color. So I'm going to take that existing color now, go into a little bit of blue. Bring in a bit more yellow. And Bit of water. And now I'm just going to, and if you sprayed water on this, that would, even make it more fluid. And I just, excuse me, now that my coughing fit's over, I just realized this is square. All the work I'm doing isn't going to show. Oh, I'm such a tool bit sometimes. Okay, so let's bring that in a little bit more. I'm going to spray with a bit of water. Spraying with water will help the paint flow. Oh, that coughing fit really took it out of me. Let's do some down here. Now I'm going to spray again. Now, you know what I did with the spray bottle? This is conditioner from Sally's, and I used it all, and I washed it really, really well. The mist on this is so fine. I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to get all this nice drippage going on. And I can let it dry the way it is, or I can go even further. A little bit more blue, and I'm going to head into a little bit of red. Because what I want is, I want a dark green, but I want it neutral. It's subtle. Now, this is going to make a mess. I'm going to take my brush, and I'm going to hit that. We're still using transparent colors, which is why everything is going to, the layers will show through. And just by using different brushes, don't forget to change the angle of what you're doing. This is making such a mess. Oh, Joe's gonna kill me. I just finished making up your studio the way you wanted, and we moved the furniture around. He wanted to put a mat under my desk. I said, I'm not going to spill any paint on the floor. Oops. Okay, now I'm going to go to more red. When we get into the lesson of chromatic black, oh, that's going to be so amazing. So more red, more blue, more yellow. Makes it even darker. Yeah, I should have put something underneath the table, but this is plastic, so I just have to wipe it up. Now, like what I have here, like some of these drops are like really, really strong. You notice I'm going towards the outside because I'm seeing what I'll get out of it, then I'm coming in. If they're too strong, I gotta be careful not to get any of my clothes. I can take my mister and mist it again, and then I can just do some tilting or let it dry the way it is. I'm going to tilt. You know what I just realized? I didn't do a book of backgrounds this year. There we go. Look at that. Now what you probably can't see. No, I have to wait. The gesso, the detail in the gesso. Now the other thing you can do, if you wanted to, you don't have to, is to take your heat gun and you can dry this stuff around, which will diffuse it even more. Okay, you can diffuse it even more. I'm going to just dry this area here. You can also take, because all we want is a background that's not so intense, but we want something like some type of action. You could take a paper towel. This is the Viva paper towel. It's got all that texture in it. If you come here, just lay it down, pull it up, and you get all that texture in it. I love that corner too. What I may do is I may move the stencil over so I can get some of this up here. There we go. Look at that. In the monitor, this looks like such a neon green, and it's not. It's not a neon green. It's a neutral. It's like almost like a sap green. All right, so I'm gonna let. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna clean up before Joel walks in here. Saying, "Do you want to have some lunch?" And he'll go, oh, "What did you do?" I better clean up. Paint everywhere. I better clean up. Then this will have this time. It'll give this some time to dry. Come back, and then we'll start the stenciling. All right, it's all ready. Now, a tip I want to give you: if you're new to stenciling, or let's say you've taken a piece of cardboard, you cut it out, and you're not quite sure what you're going to get out of it. What you can do is once you stencil onto paper like this, it's pretty well going to, it's going to be stuck. It's going to stay. But you may say, well, Gisele, you said if you put gesso that you can wipe stuff back. Yeah, this stuff here, whatever you put in the gesso, you can wipe it back. But now we put paint on here, you would have to put gesso on it again. Well, we can't put gesso on it because then we cover this up. What you can do to create a barrier layer, and I'm trying to think of where it was. The bottle's empty. I have to get some more, but it's the decoupage medium from DecoArt. You can get different finishes for it. The matte is nice. It's a nice one. The one that I love using on a lot of artwork where I create a barrier layer is actually the outdoor version of the outdoor finish. You can also use just matte medium, a layer, and that'll create a barrier layer so the paint that you put on won't go underneath. Okay, so that's an option for you. And I'm going to go up here because I want to use, so I can see through the stencil, what all that beautiful goodness is, which really won't show, but I want to think of what I want to keep. I think I want this here. So I'll put this over here. The smart thing to do is to tape it down. I don't have any tape. Joe took it. I started putting my name on my tools because I started finding my hammer on his workbench. It's okay when I need to steal his tools, but it's not okay when he wants to steal mine. Yeah, I know. Hypocrite! You don't have to use a stenciling brush. You can. Or just use whatever you want. I'm going to use just a regular brush, stenciling brush. I'm going to start with the rose gold first, and I'm going to blot it on a paper towel. Then when I'm ready to do the letters, then I'll go into the black. So I'm going to put this over here. You should be able to see. So start with the rose gold. Really load the brush. Then wipe the excess off. You do not want to use wet paint for this. I don't know if this is going to be strong enough. I have no idea. I've never used this paint with green. It may not be strong enough. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Which is a shame because I really love this. Now I could have used a texture paste. Metallic, the rose gold metallic texture paste. It's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad, but so I'm going to go into the charcoal, really load the brush, but then wipe off as much as I can. And what this is going to do is going to overpower the rose gold that's in the brush. So this is why it's good to do little tests like this. Especially when you've never done it before. Never experiment on a canvas when you're doing something for the first time. Unless you don't mind covering it up, like depending on what it is. Not to say to never, but depends on what it is. Like when I'm doing stuff like this, I would never waste the time to experiment on a canvas. Because this gives me a lot more freedom. And subconsciously, I don't care about making mistakes, but if I'm going to be doing something on a $25 canvas, you can pretty well be guaranteed that you can hairs out of the brush are coming out. Got a really good load on this one. I make it. Oh. And then this, I just let it dry. Obviously, you can't clean it. Here we go. And I just have to cut it. I'm going to leave it the way it is because I'm going to mount it in my journal. What I should have did was this way so I can mount it in the journal this way. But I could. I'll bind it here. But yeah, so taking a look at this, this is where you start doing some analyzing. So what would I do different? Different brushes. I don't like the way these are fraying. I'm loving the color, and I'm loving the gesso texture underneath. It's just showing slightly. So the color's a definite yes on the metallic. So that's a yes. Rose gold, no. No, I'm not liking the rose gold. And actually thinking, oh, can I find it? Can I find it? Can I find it? Oh. I wonder if I can correct this. Now this is where you would just do, oh, I think it's dried out. Oh, come on. I've got some DecoArt metallic. I'm not going to go over the existing stars, but I can go here. That's dry. I can go here. And just add another one. It may not be dark enough. No, it's not really dark enough. But you see where I'm going with this, right? This is where I can experiment with the color. Now the other thing I can do is if you had a fancy pen, oh, which I don't, but okay, they're obviously not here. I have a whole bunch of metallics. You could take a pen and actually draw in here and color it in. Or, you know what? We're artists, right? Something this simple. You could just paint it by hand. It becomes a little bit more tedious when doing stuff like this by hand. I prefer doing it with a stencil, but you could do that as well. So, so this would be good, like for fairy, like a little girl, for like a fairy tale type of thing. I like the green in that. The black, I'm thinking now, as everything's drying, it could be a little bit stronger, but it's just a really good way to experiment before, you know, doing something formal for your wall. So now I know what I would change up. And yeah, this will not go with the furniture that we have. It should have been more teal. So what I'm going to do is when we get to do the blues, because we are going to be working with teals and turquoise as well, when I get to that lesson, I will create another piece of artwork similar in style to this using those colors. And then if I can remember, we'll do a comparison because the colors I need to go for with my accent decor is definitely not green. It's more of a bluish, but this gives you a really good idea of what you can accomplish. This would make a good journal cover if I had done it this way. All right, but so what to do is experiment. Try creating yourself a background, a random background. Then don't say, yeah, but what if I ruin it? Who cares? If you have to do it again, it's just more practice. Then if you have a stencil, great. Just take any stencil and just experiment with paints that you think would go well with it, but not clash with it. And if you don't have any stencils, take a piece of cardboard, just cut out some shapes and do that. Okay, so your homework assignment is to create a background and then some type of stencil to go on top. Use food packaging, use whatever you want. So now I have a pop quiz for you. Why do you think I chose these colors, these metallic colors for the typography on this background? All right, so I'll leave that with you. So answers to that and photos of your piece, click the description below if you're watching on YouTube to go to the community or to the private Facebook group. Post your pictures over there. I'm doing all my feedback over in the in those groups. The Facebook group is the one that's the most popular, so that's where I'm spending most of my time. I am not doing any feedback for this color mixing course and challenge in YouTube because you can't post pictures in YouTube. All right, so I'm not doing anything in there, doing it only over on the other two. So hope you'll join me there, and looking forward to seeing your pieces. So until I see you in the next lesson, stay inspired.